Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back. Um, Today we're gonna watch a little bit together, a little bit of the goat himself, Alex Carp, the guy I believe in, the guy I believe is like the next Einstein, the guy who tells it how it is, the guy who's more patriotic than anybody else. It's this guy right here. This is Alex Carp. I would compare him to like the Kobe Bryant of the stock market. So I really like him. Everything about him, the way he's handled himself. I've been a Palantir stockholder since they came out, and I have bought religiously, just nonstop. In the fact that I mean, who out there is selling? Like really, who out there is selling Palantir? Like this has got to stop. It's down to like $6.90. So pitiful. Anyway, you guys be a judge for yourself and let me know if you think he's a genius or not. This was his last interview.
We spent well over a decade, certainly if you look from inception, building products for peace. So, so you could distribute vaccines and organize many of the most important institutions in the world. But of course, products of war. We believed and believe if, unlike most of our colleagues in Silicon Valley, if you are strong, you prevent the adversary from acting up. And that's why we thought this war might happen. We build products that allow you to do very high-end AI-enabled targeting. Most of the details we can't discuss, but our adversaries are very, very well aware now of their impact. These products have changed the course of history. They changed.
He's saying this right now, but because of Palantir and, of course, Ukraine, it takes the soldiers to do it. But because of Palantir, Ukraine has been able to hold off Russia. That's how important this company is and how important this company is going to be.
Change the power structure of America. And perhaps most importantly, as a former academic, our adversaries used to run around the world. We have a very significant business outside of America saying, well, America has liberty and entertainment and freedom, but we're better at fighting wars. We're better at building products of war. We're better at internal surveillance. And now, lo and behold, it turns out those of us who are purveyors not just of war products, but of liberty, most importantly, the United States of America, are not only better at entertainment and having fun, we're also better at building products of war. And that narrative, I think, is going to change the world, is already changing the world, because of the many things we're not allowed to say that have happened in the Ukraine, our adversaries know every single one of them. And so we are no longer viewed, America, as just a place that produces the most important articles of liberty, but as a culture that builds the best software.
There's a lot I want to pick up on there. I guess the first thing, though, is I see these conversations happening at places like this forum, this idea that we have to move more quickly where things like software and new technologies are concerned. DOD and other entities are not doing enough, or not deploying enough. But then I hear you talk, and it sounds like maybe that's not necessarily the case, at least where Palantir is concerned.
A lot of tech companies are, now they're, not all, but, you just have to, when we had our conversation last year, we were still in a phase where, most software companies, and certainly most companies in Silicon Valley, their basic view is how can we help the adversary while pretending to help America. So first and foremost, what we need to do in America is make sure that everyone, especially in Silicon Valley, is aligned with we are going to give our best products and our best technology to the U.S. government first, not second, fourth, and fifth, while pretending we care because we've got some crazy ideas.
How can you not invest in that, guys? You just hear that? Like this, he should run for president. Maybe he should, but he's a genius. And oh yeah, he's moving around in his chair. I do that too. People that have ADHD, they're moving around, they're fidgeting. That's just what they do. And some of them happen to be brilliant, and that's what this guy is. So a lot of people are like, why is he moving around so much? Who cares?
The idea that no one cares about that makes us feel superior to everyone else. That's the most important thing. The U.S. economy, we're seeing this in our software sales in the U.S., and especially the U.S. government. Sure, there's a lot you can complain about, but it is the best at adaptation. We had to fight our way in the DoD. People, because of the size and footprint of our work, they think we're insiders. We see the U.S. government not once but twice, not to buy Palantir, but to buy the best software, and we won twice. And so the U.S. government has been iterating and adopting and adopting and adopting. Quite frankly, the larger problem is many of our allies are living in the 70s where hardware alone could work and spending all their money on local industry that isn't really that good at software. So I think the onus of us in technology is to really invest. Of course, most companies can't be focused on the U.S. military the way we are because it's core to our mission, but they can't be focused last on the U.S. military and then complain that it's too hard.
Is it changing now because of Ukraine?
Well, there's a lot that's changing. So an already fairly good situation is getting better for technology companies because the U.S. economy and U.S. institutions in general are very pragmatic. They're much less ideological than in other countries. They're like, well, what worked? How did it work? How much did we spend on it? And what were the results? Is a very American way of looking at something. And it is exactly the way you look at tech implementation, whether it's a company or a government. And there's the outside version of what you're allowed to say, but the inside version, with all the data, a lot of which is classified, you see that it is not just a banality that we are in a software world. We are in a software world. And what's also interesting is what is America indisputably the best in the world at doing? Building software. And no one doubts it's interesting. If you ask most Americans, they're like, well, we're good at football. We're good at films that I never watch. We have a great finance industry. We're good at, having politicians that none of us really understand. We have a lot of aptitudes, but what we're the best at is building software. And it turns out for transforming your industry in hard times and winning against adversaries, it is the single most important thing.
It sort of speaks to what you talked about in your recent letter, which was you've shifted from insurgent outsider to incumbent. This idea of software as a prime. How big is that opportunity for Palantir?
Well, America spends about $800 billion on software. By the way, we're also very big in Britain and a number of other countries. So, to use a term I hate that financial people love, total addressable market is probably north of $900 billion.
$900 billion is the TAM. So, and this is the leader in this category. I don't want to hear about no Snowflake or Databricks. When it comes down to actually real software for that they can use data to make companies phenomenal. That's what they do. Or they make you phenomenal at war. You add this to your, like QuickBooks. This is what you should add to your business no matter what. Like, especially if you're a big business. They don't just do war. He just talks about war a lot. Because, I mean, obviously he has he believes that with his software he can even win wars with few people. If we ever get into war, we are going to need Palantir more than ever. I don't know if we're going to war now or 100 years from now, but I think Palantir will be around. This company's been around for 20 years. So they just went public 2 years ago, and the second they did, I bought. And this guy is the reason why.
We believe we have the single most important components for adaptive warfare against a large adversary that's willing to allow their troops to die. So exactly what you saw in the Ukraine, and that the percentage of the 900 billion that we would be able to capture is obviously very large because pragmatic people are like, well, I could spend 100 billion on something that maybe has marginal impact that our adversaries. By the way, when you're looking at value, you always have to ask, what is it that I can build the adversary can't build? And there's a lot of things that are going to shift simply because we're building things adversaries can also build. But software, they will not be able to keep up with us. And so more and more of that market is going to come to not just in Palantir's direction, but in the direction of people that can build software that is useful or critical for warfare.
I mean, we hear so much about China's investment in technologies. You mentioned surveillance states earlier in this conversation. I mean, it's the sort of king surveillance state, case in point, what we've seen play out in terms of protests and at least initial response to those protests in the last couple of days. Can we really counter China when technology and software are concerned? Are we really that much more dominant when they have a different business model and they've been much more aggressive on the government side?
They have a business model to control their citizens. and we will not surpass them at that. And thank God. We have a business model in America to increase liberty at home and to make sure adversaries that attack us or our allies pay a very, very heavy price. We need to stay focused on our business model. If it's about central control, either of economy or of your citizens, they win. If it's about distributed systems where you share information that's crucial for weapons of war with your adversaries, we have a huge advantage. We actually have allies and friends.
Let's talk a little bit about the commercial side of the business, especially when you're talking about technologies that have been applied to, for example, evacuations in Afghanistan being the same type of technologies that are now being purchased by commercial entities.
Well, what we see is that the most important market in the world, the US of A, is also the most adaptive market in the world. Our commercial offering is flying off the shelf. We grew in the last 12 months 102% in the US. America adapts, and will, in the end, buy the single best products on the market. That's why we're succeeding, despite the fact that we're new to this game and by building out a commercial sales force and doing all sorts of things normal companies are doing. Communicating with normal, otherwise adult people is not something we're particularly adept at. But we are very good at building software. The same software use cases that you have in government can be applied to America.
Do you think Wall Street truly understands what Palantir is doing, particularly on the commercial side, particularly given the fact the stock's down something like 60% this year?
No.
Well, I think Wall Street largely understands we're a tech company and punishes all tech companies right now. The interesting thing about Palantir is all of our products historically, whether it's our Intel product, or it's the mapping toggles, it's the AI product that's now changed the world, the product that we built for distributed vaccine have been 5 years ahead of the market. Our commercial offering is 5 years ahead, 3-4 years ahead of what Wall Street probably understands. Wall Street will very well understand the value of Palantir as they begin to take account of the fact that we're just outstripping everyone with our Foundry product. It will take a while, just like, honestly, when we were talking last year and I was saying, hey, we're going to do ABCD. Well, that looks crazy. It's not that crazy when Russia goes into a country and the software. And this is the exact same thing when it comes to Palantir's full value. And by the way, I would also say Palantir has always been over and undervalued. And clearly we're undervalued, but at some point we'll be overvalued again.
Yes, and that should happen like tomorrow, because what the hell is going on? This is why I just love this guy. And then you got Peter Thiel. I wish he would come out and say some stuff. If they would just buy some shares back, but they don't really care about the stock price. They care about their company and growing it. And that's why I really love this company. I'll continue to add. I don't even know when I'll stop adding, but I just wanted to give you guys a good idea of why I picked Palantir to be one of my biggest positions in my portfolio.